I am getting annoyed with the online hullabaloo about what Hector Neris said to Julio Rodriguez in Wednesday night's Astros Mariners game. I'm annoyed by it. I think we're all annoyed by it, but it's become more than just a minor blip on the radar for the Astros, because now we found out yesterday that Major League Baseball is going to look into the incident and the alleged homophobic slur that Hector Neris threw at Julio Rodriguez. And that's led to Houston versus Seattle fans online getting in a poop hurl off. You know, everyone's just slinging mud at each other. But here's what happened over the course of last evening. The update. First off, we got a statement written by the Houston Astros and or Hector Neris, but released by the Houston Astros, that said this. First, I want to apologize to Julio, his family, and the Mariners organization. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Julio as a person and a player. He means so much to baseball and the communities in the United States and back home in the Dominican Republic. He is a great player, a better person, and deserves to be recognized that way. Secondly, Julio has been a friend dating back to 2020 when we spent the pandemic working out together. We have had a friendly competition when one beats the other on the field, something that is customary in the Dominican Republic and especially among friends. My intent in going towards Julio was to get his attention as part of the friendly, ongoing banter that we have had over the years. Okay, can we pause for a second as we read this statement? Was that really friendly? I don't think Hector can say that was friendly. I don't. That was crazy. Imagine you're playing a game of beer pong with one of your friends and you wipe the floor with him. And then afterwards, you go up to him and start barking at him. Forget what was even said. Like, that is how you handle winning. It's a tad aggressive. I don't think it's friendly as much as aggressive. Sean, do you disagree on this?
I've been known to chirp every once in a while.
Do you chirp like that?
Yeah, kind of.
You go up to people in their face and be like, like that?
I mean, I don't bark.
Well,
like a dog.
Say if Hector Neris had barked, this wouldn't even be a thing. So we're not even talking about the actual word that he said. Hang on. We're not even talking about the actual word that he said. All I'm saying is, do you go up to the friend and chirp like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's weirder to do if you're not friends with the person.
Okay.
Like, I'm more likely to talk smack to my friends when we beat each other in what's it called? Like you said, beer pong, or in bags, in cornhole. There's a lot of chirping that goes on.
No doubt. That wasn't chirping. Stop. That wasn't chirping. That was over the top.
Yeah, because they're playing for a freaking playoff spot.
I've never seen a pitcher.
Of course it's more amped up.
Sean, I've never seen a pitcher run up to the batter like that. Ever.
Okay, sure.
I've never seen that. No one's seen that. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm not even mad at Hector Neris here. I'm just saying, okay, that wasn't friendly. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay. It wasn't friendly.
Okay, maybe I'm just saying that, like, the walking up is the problem then. It's not the talking.
Honestly, probably yes.
Yeah, so if he just did it how he normally does, because he screams after every third out.
He does.
Every third out that he gets, he goes nuts. So that's why, for me, like, this isn't even that weird that he did that.
So he continued in his statement. I recognize that last night I should not have gone towards him like I did, as we just mentioned. I did not mean to disrespect him, his family, or the Mariners. I do understand how my actions could be interpreted that way. Last, there were reports that I used a homophobic slur, which are simply incorrect. That did not happen, and any suggestion to the contrary is wrong. My mother raised me to love and respect people for who they are, and that is how I live my life. He might be 100% honest here, but I've seen a lot of people online acting like a written statement that was not even said publicly by Hector Neris completely exonerates him here. It doesn't. You can choose to believe him, or you can choose to not believe him. This does not exonerate him saying this. Like, actually, I didn't. Imagine if you could get away with anything by just putting out a written statement and saying, well, really, I didn't do that. It would be great. So let's get to the Seattle side of this. Mariners third baseman Eugenio Suarez in the on-deck circle at T-Mobile Park when the incident occurred told the Seattle Times he heard Hector Neris use the slur during an unusual sequence. Neris struck out Rodriguez, then demonstrably walked towards Rodriguez near home plate and shouted at him in Spanish. Well, Suarez thought it was a joke at first because he knew they were friends. He took exception to Neris' choice of words, also made it clear it was unacceptable to go after Julio. He did not get into specifics, though, did Suarez. And I don't believe he got into specifics last night. Julio Rodriguez, though, we did hear from. More than anything, Rodriguez said he was just confused by everything that went down.
Confused than anything by the reaction.
Like, literally confused because like, I will understand, like, oh, you get excited, or even, like, we know each other. Come on, man. Like, we know each other. And, like, whenever I saw the extent that he did it, that's why I was like, man, why are you doing that to me? You know, like, why? Why is your whole point of that stuff? It just, I was honestly so confused. I don't know, I even watched the video, and, like, you can clearly tell that I was not expecting that.
Rodriguez continued saying he did not want to disclose the nature of Neris' comments, though privately, sources close to Rodriguez said he confirmed Suarez's account that a homophobic slur was uttered. You heard him say that he was confused right there, and he also was adamant that there were never any issues from the home run in June of 22 that supposedly was in the back of Neris' mind. And a lot of people are taking that lack of response and running with it, saying, well, clearly Hector said something to Julio Rodriguez. That also does not mean Neris is guilty. You can choose to believe Suarez. You can speculate based off of Rodriguez's non-answer. I think it's important to note that neither were willing to go on record when pressed. And if they were, this would be clear, cut, and bleeping dry. Maybe they didn't want to do any snitching or anything like that. Whatever the case. That is what happened. And now all of a sudden, this online conversation has devolved into TikTokers lip reading. It's devolved into people who are Hispanic going all Urban Dictionary on us when it comes to what is and what isn't a Latin slur. And all I could see online is just people yelling at each other, because I obviously still follow some people from Seattle, and I obviously follow a lot of people in Houston. Could it be this simple? Could this entire back and forth and the outrage it has created be this simple? Could it be that a city with a 44.5% Hispanic population thinks it has a little more insight on what is and what isn't a Spanish homophobic slur? Yes. And is it possible that a city with a 12.9% LGBTQ population would be sensitive to a report of a homophobic slur? Yes. Instead, it has turned into Republicans versus Democrats. It has turned into capitalism versus communism. It is just two sides online yelling at each other. And as someone who is now wearing a half Astros, half Mariners shirt, I think it's time that we admit something. And maybe we need to use Dave Mason, a wise philosopher, to move on from this altogether. So leave it alone. 'Cause we can't see eye to eye. There ain't no good guy. There ain't no bad guy. It's only you and me, and we just disagree. Ooh, whoa. Right? Can't we just disagree and move on instead of getting into the semantics of all of this? Thank you for your service, Dave Mason. So that's where I'm at. You want to react to this, 713-780-3776 to call or text. You can join on the Twitch, twitch.tv/ESPN975. I don't know what Neris said. I'm not going to pretend to know what Neris said. I think that's really only between Neris and Rodriguez, and I guess Suarez by default. As we discussed yesterday, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to the Spanish language, especially from Latin American country to Latin American country. And I don't know that we can truly say that Hector Neris was or wasn't saying a homophobic slur. I would like to believe Hector Neris seems like he's got a lot of credibility and a lot of people that like him. At the same time, if Julio Rodriguez is operating like this, I know some people are like, oh, he's soft. I don't know, man. Like, if you think you're friends with the guy and all of a sudden he comes at you as intensely as he did there, I could understand why Rodriguez would say after the fact, I don't want to talk to Neris anytime soon. He's reached out to apologize to me. I'm not responding. I'm not going to act like I know what was said. I also am not going to act like baseball will know what was said either. I think there's some he said going on. I think a fine is likely. I don't know if they can go so far as to suspend him, though, because I imagine the Players Association will step in if these guys aren't going on record with what he actually said.
Remember the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph? Remember the head bonk, the helmet bonk on Mason Rudolph's head, and that there is no audio of what was said that play. For whatever reason, the mics just stopped working that play, and we never knew what was actually said. I don't know what MLB. I mean, maybe you could make the argument that the NFL is just trying to protect, either Rudolph or Garrett in that situation, and so they just kind of buried it, like the NFL buries everything. Do you think that the MLB will do the same thing, where they're like, listen, no one's going to come out looking good if we, whatever is actually said, let's just, bury it, or
they will bury it. They like to bury things. As we remember with the Astros sign stealing scandal, there was no follow-up on any other teams after that was done. They wanted to move on. I honestly think there might have been a directive behind the scenes to avoid talking about this if possible, because everyone went radio silent. And it was still, I think, an interesting story. And the beat reporters who covered the team every single day, I'm sure that they still had some questions if it was happening with other teams. And it supposedly was happening with other teams. Yeah. So I think in this situation, they're going to try to bury it. And I bet the best way to do it is a fine. And
especially with it being like 3 games until the playoffs, too.
Yeah.
So they can't really suspend these guys for 5 games.
Well,
or they can't suspend Neris.
They can. and
Julio
again,
did nothing to get suspended.
Let's also remember the Astros were the one team punished for all this. Was their punishment that heavy? It really wasn't. But there's also a dynamic of, sure, maybe the Players Association stands up for Hector Neris, but what do the other teams around baseball want to see happen because they all hate the Astros? Like there's definitely an element of that to wonder about. And look, I mean, these could be Hector Neris' final games with the Houston Astros. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's going to be rather expensive in the offseason. It's a shame that they gave money to, I don't know, Rafael Montero, so they would actually be able to afford him, because it's not just that Neris is a good pitcher. It's also that you like the little emotional charge that he gives you. Relievers are very difficult to predict year to year, though, so there is that. I guess you could use as a devil's advocate argument. But, I mean, there is a chance that we end up seeing Hector Neris get suspended. I don't know how high it is, and again, I don't know if baseball is going to be willing to really fight the MLB Players Association. And I imagine Neris would have the ability to perhaps appeal the suspension and make it so it doesn't happen until next year.
Yeah,
because of the plausible deniability. Right, like, Sean, unless there's some sort of body mic on one of these players, I don't think we can really prove what was said unless Julio Rodriguez or Eugenio Suarez go on record and say exactly what was said. And it seems like they're reluctant to do that, which is actually working in Neris' favor.
Yes. Also, it could be the situation like with Yuli Gurriel, where by the time the punishment comes down, now Yuli was different because it was in the freaking World Series. But when Yuli did the gesture about Yu Darvish in the dugout, he got suspended, 5 or 10 games?
Yes.
But the start of the 2018 season, maybe it's something. I mean, I can't imagine that Hector Neris, maybe I'll be wrong on this. Like, I can't imagine he gets suspended like more than 1, 2, 3 games.
I bet most of it'll be 5 because he's a pitcher. That's what they generally do. Even it's weird because like starters versus relievers.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that baseball is looking into this and that there's definitely potential for danger with Neris, but I don't think it's going to affect the Astros this year. As far as what actually happened, there are so many things, intricacies that I can't really understand because I don't speak Spanish. I'm not from a Latin American country. When I was in college, I had a lot of Puerto Rican friends. I used to hear that P word a lot, but they were calling people bitches. They weren't calling people homophobic slurs. Yeah. But that word can be interpreted as a homophobic slur. So that's because it supposedly means male prostitute. Like there's a lot of tricky things with this language. And on the other side of things, I get why Seattle's freaking out. It is a very, very gay-friendly city. So I'm in the middle here with an understanding of both cities.
Literally wearing a split shirt.
Why? And I get why they're all freaking out at each other. I do. I'll be honest. I'm tired of it, but it is a big story right now, especially with the Astros having an off night last night.
And part of it, like you make a good point about the LGBT community in Seattle and why this would be especially under the magnifying glass there. Another reason it's under the magnifying glass is that Seattle hates it when Houston does anything. They get in their feelings so quickly when it comes to the Astros, especially, in this scenario where it's not only an Astro after winning 2 or 3 in a very important series against the Mariners, but it's also going after Julio Rodriguez. I think that's part of it, is that's Julio Rodriguez. And that's their guy. That's we've talked about it a couple times during the year where Altuve does hits for the cycle, and the lead baseball story on ESPN isn't Altuve. It's that Julio Rodriguez is smiled after hitting a home run or whatever the lead story is. It is something where you're going against not just the face of that team, but someone who's trying to get propped up as the face of baseball.
Exactly. That's a fair point. We've got Dr. Dre on 290 calling in 713-780-3776 with a thought on Hector Neris. What's going on, Dr. Dre?
Hey, Paul, Sean, how's it going?
Yo.
Hey, just wanted to make it short and sweet. I just think it's a little bit hypocritical of batters getting all sensitive because the pitcher shows them up, man. I mean, see all the bat flips, you see the celebration, you see the dancing as the batter's coming into home plate after hitting a home run. Big deal. He pointed at him and yelled at him. I just think it's a non-issue, man. And batters can't be as sensitive as much crap as the pitchers say.
That's a great point. It is funny, Dr. Dre. I can't remember a single time I've seen a pitcher do that after striking a guy out. Not one. And I brought that up. Dustin, his sources on Twitter, said, don't we see players getting in the face of other players and chirp all the time in football after a good tackle or catch? Yeah, 100%.
Basketball. Yeah.
But it does feel like hitters get to do it, and pitchers, their only retaliation is by throwing at them, and then we dump on the pitchers for throwing at them. This actually is a healthy response, in my opinion. The problem is the word that was said, that's thrown everything into territory on the internet. If you get where I'm saying at. That's why all of Houston is yelling at Seattle people. It's a majority Hispanic city. It's 44% Hispanic versus a city where it's almost 13% LGBTQ. So it's two sides that feel very passionate about something they know better than the other side and sensitive to it. And it's just led to the absolute worst combination on the internet. And I know for a lot of people in Houston, you're not dealing with this. I am. This is my entire internet feed is just everyone yelling that Hector Neris needs to be taken out, back, and shot, or that Hector Neris is a hero. And I'm like, can't we just be nuanced and in the middle?
No.
Like me with my stupid Mara Rose shirt.
Yeah, I like Mr. Can't we all just be in the middle? Well, you literally have a shirt split down the middle. Yeah, I do think that it is a good point, and especially it's what I think Hector Neris was kind of referring to in his statement that he put out, where there is a little bit of kind of one-upsmanship, or you celebrate a little bit extra when Julio hit the home run last year against Hector Neris. He carried the bat all the way,
He did carry the bat.
Like Pedro Serrano all the way across the bases in Major League. And then, this, I think Joel Blanco, the Killer Bees, brought up a good point yesterday that I heard, where in his mind, there's a line that goes straight down the from the pitcher's mound to the home plate. And if you're a pitcher, you can celebrate like that as long as you're not going towards the other team's dugout.
Right.
If you celebrate towards your dugout, it's a little bit different. There's kind of baseball and these unspoken rules and unwritten rules.
Oh,
of
no.
Baseball, where it's like you can celebrate going one way, but you can't celebrate going the other way.
We should write these rules down. It's too
we should
hard
put
to
a line
remember.
in the middle of the field.
It would be really funny if every single player had like a handbook with the written rules, and like they had to take it out to determine whether or not they could actually do one thing or another.
Or there's just like a great like arbiter like floating above the state like in a perch like a tennis ref like and flipping through like it looks like the Old Testament to find these unwritten rules.
Oh no, that's even worse. The Old Testament, bringing that up. Let my unwritten rules go.
Let my relievers go.